Hello gamers and welcome back to Game World. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
Today we are joined once again by the team from Hyroglyphik Games, who are going to be, we had on previously on the show, and it's always nice when we have a developer or a designer on the show and they agree to actually come back a second time. So this is actually quite exciting for ourselves. So previously when they were on the show, they were talking about Zoom, which is their mobile game, and Calypto, which is the card game. And now the team from Hyroglyphik Games are back with their latest game called King of the Hat. Kim, do you want to introduce who we've got on the line today?
Yes, so we have to welcome 3 members now to the show. And the Hieroglyphics team is welcome Socrates, Chris, and Ben.
What's up? Hey everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Just working on King of the Hat, putting in another late night. You know, that's how it goes in crunch time.
So we only saw you earlier this year, and that was a very, you had just released Zome, and now it's only been a few months, and you've already had multiple events, and you showed off King of the Hat at Montreal Comic-Con, which I had talked about. So, King of the Hat, what is this game about? Let's tell everybody what it is first.
Okay, so just before we even say that, I just want to address one thing. Like the last podcast we did, you guys asked us what our next project was going to be. Mm-hmm. And basically we made none of the things that we mentioned.
Exactly, I was going to get to that eventually.
But so basically, it's a game that takes place in a world where everyone's born with a hat. The hat contains their soul, and if you jump on their hat, they die. So that's basically the starting point. The twist is that the hat is also a powerful weapon. So if you hit someone with the hat, it will knock their hat off and make it easier for you to jump on their hat. But if you miss, your hat might go somewhere where somebody can't defend, where you can't defend it and someone else will step on it. So it's like really all about risk reward, managing 2 hitboxes.
I mean, the obvious question is, what was the inspiration for King of the Hat? I mean, obviously you've got this unique concept where your life force is your hat, and you've got a battle concept where you're kind of like odd job throwing your hat at people. So. And looking at the range of characters that you've included in this game, it's unique to say the least. I mean, what was this inspiration that created King of the Hat then?
So generally for us, we don't really have an inspiring idea and then decide to carry it out. It sort of gets built along the way. So what happened was that Ben and I did a game jam once, and we made a game where you could jump on people's heads to beat them. And it was just a nice little fun party game. We made it in 2 days. And then we decided to take the project further. And so then Socrates takes a look at the project and he says, okay, well, why am I jumping on someone's head? I need an intrinsic reason to jump on someone's head. So then we did an exercise that we called 20 ideas in 20 minutes, where we just sketched down 20 ideas of reasons or a world why you'd be jumping on someone's head. So one of them was everyone's an astronaut and there's only enough air for 1 passenger, so you got to crush at people's astronaut helmets. Another one took place in a world where everyone was a robot with a giant trigger on their head that exploded them. And then one of the ideas was hats. And we really liked the, diversity that it had and the amount of different hats there were. And Socrates was like, wouldn't it be funny if you jumped on someone's hat and they shriveled up and died because it was a life source? So we decided to put hats in. And we had a small game where you just run around and you got to jump in the guy's hat. But it still wasn't enough. And we made the hat fall off sometimes. And then finally we decided, okay, what if you can choose when you throw your hat? And then that's pretty much how King of the Hat was born, the original gameplay of it. And then after that, Ben and Socrates went crazy with characters, and we decided to make their uniqueness really the pillar of the game.
I mean, you mentioned right, you went a bit crazy with the uniqueness of the characters. I mean, what was the idea behind some of these characters? Because as we said before, there's some very unique characters that you decided to include in King of the Hat. It's not anything by your sort of traditional sort of characters that you've chosen to go with for this game, which I kind of love at the same time.
Yeah, so all the characters came from different different places. Some are just very funny and comical. For example, like Birthday's story is it's his birthday today, and it's his birthday tomorrow, and it was his birthday yesterday, and it's probably his birthday in a few months from now, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, it's his birthday, and that's his whole thing, is that it's his birthday, and he's a super happy kid. And some characters actually, like, we kind of made them knowing that they would have like more significance to the story, specifically like Kiara and Fat Cat, who are the two rivals that really drive the plot forward, because Fat Cat has kidnapped Kiara and kidnapped all the citizens of Hadlandia. And Kiara's hair used to be blonde, but now she's angry and it's turned bright red, and she wants to, find Fat Cat and return her people to where they belong. So they all kind of come from different places and have different functions in the story and in the world.
So, like, what we've seen so far, say, like, I've tried King of the Hat before at Montreal Comic Con, and it's mostly a multiplayer, kind of like a couch co-op kind of experience. Is there going to be a story campaign that's going to go on, or is it just solely, like, really just, like, casual multiplayer kind of style?
So at this point, it really depends on how the Kickstarter turns out. We really want to, add more stuff for people who aren't going to have friends to play with, for example, all the time, I mean, like, nobody has friends at their house, like, 24 hours a day, and, like...
Unless you're Kanye West.
Yeah, unless you're Kanye West. But, no one... I don't think that's the target market for this game.
That could be a good target market. It's a game for Kanye.
But, so basically right now, the amount of features we decide to put in the game is really going to turn out... it's really going to be based on how well the Kickstarter turns out. So probably the most asked for feature is the online, and so that's probably where we're going to put most of our time if the Kickstarter pans out. And like if it really pans out, like super pans out, a story mode is actually on the list of things, as well as a level editor, a character editor, things like that.
I mean, compared to the previous games we've seen from yourself, I mean, King of the Hat marks a noticeable change in style from the previous games. I mean, was this always the intention to try and venture off and do a different style of game, or was it just basically the case of this was the best style to match the game that you were trying to create?
I would say, honestly, it's a little bit of both. I think from the beginning, when Chris and I were making games together, we always had this type of sense of humor, but we found it was really hard to kind of express it through the games themselves because, I don't know, somehow we just never really made a game that allowed us to kind of express that. And working with Ben, I feel Ben is a lot more towards that area, and he really like helps us to express it more.
Oh, that's so nice. What a lovely comment.
So I would say that the noticeable change really has to do with the fact that we started working with Ben, and we've really cultivated that, like, I guess, company culture, and we've really cultivated more like our own personalities and found other ways of communicating them through gameplay that we didn't know how to do before.
So you mentioned you joked about the intended audience. So what is your target market supposed to be?
So the target market for this game is really anybody who enjoys a couch multiplayer game. Like if you enjoy just like sitting down on your couch and playing a game with someone else, I guess that's our target market. It's weird to say like target market like that. But I generally believe that's like the broader scope of somebody who would enjoy King of the Hat, is anybody who enjoys a local multiplayer game. And we've noticed that that people who play or have played Smash Bros. Tend to take to the game faster because I guess they understand the movement quite quickly.
Yeah, we also based some of the movement off Smash just to make it easier for them. Like the dash dancing, so when you like move left and right in the game, you get a little bit of a speed boost, and it kind of feels the same way it feels in Smash a little bit.
It's funny, we actually brought this game we've brought it to 2 Smash events now, Super Smash Con this summer, and we also brought it to playtest at Montreal Smash Loft. And like you hand a player the controller and they just immediately start dash dancing. It's just like total muscle memory. They know this controller, they know the movement. It's a funny thing to see. So, yeah.
Yeah, the thing I like about the game is the fact that it's got a very easy to understand and simple sort of core playability to it. And as you mentioned already, that I can see why it would appeal to people who obviously like Smash Brothers, and then people who look like just the self-contained sort of games like Overcooked or Savage Beasts, and it's kind of refreshing to see a game where the concept and the playability is right there. Because when I look at a lot of the sort of what we used to consider to be like the multiplayer games, like like Tekken, Street Fighter, those sort of games, and now we look at their current incarnations, and they're so overblown and complex, and there's sort of like, it's really hard to find multiplayer games that you can play with non-gamers that have that sort of pick up and play. And that's what I especially like about King of the Hat, is that you can show this to someone who isn't a gamer and they can pretty much pick up straight away. It's like, oh, I've got to just throw my hat at you or just jump on your hat, and that's how I win. There's no sort of complex combo system to learn, and there certainly doesn't seem to be a sort of steep level of sort of difficulty. It's got a very nice sort of pick up and play to it, and I think this is something we're seeing more and more in the independent scene. So, was it always the intention that you wanted to keep this sort of concept as simple, so that it was just sort of like had that ability to just sort of pick up and play, or was it just sort of a byproduct really of just the game that you were creating?
Well, one of the things that we've been practicing since we started making games was just the ability to make very simple systems that don't require a lot of controls or a lot of inputs, and that give room to a lot of play space, I guess, a lot of strategy, or what you can do with those very limited buttons. So it's always refreshing for new players. When they play our game, they notice, they're like, it's nice to bring something simple back that can still be deep in terms of strategy and stuff. So all of the games that we've made in the past have really built towards this. And people always suggest to add more buttons to the game. What if you could taunt? What if you could do this? What if you could do that? And we take their feedback in, but we always try to find a way to keep it within those 2 buttons, because we really like the fact that it's easily picked up by just about anybody. I've seen 5-year-olds play, I've seen 60-year-olds play, and I think like the fundamental goal of the game of just jumping on someone's hat is something that everyone can understand and connect with fundamentally. And since the since the controls are very simple, it definitely lends well to that. So was it our plan? I would say, yeah, it's always in the back of our mind.
I would say it was our plan, actually, because one of the main reasons we ended up working with Ben. One of the main reasons we ended up working with Ben was actually because he had done the game jam with Chris on this concept, and like it was a game about jumping on people's heads initially, which wasn't like so interesting, but it was just the way people had reacted to the game was something we wanted to maintain throughout. So like when somebody was playing a game about jumping on people's heads, everybody was felt like no one was intimidated by that, and that's kind of the reason why we pushed this avenue so hard.
Yeah, and just one more thing on that. I know this answer has gone to every member of the team now, but I think jumping on someone's head in a video game is something that people understand because on like an intrinsic reason, but also for like a historical reason because of Mario. So Mario taught the world that if you jump on someone's head, that it knocks them out. And we're using that knowledge that people have about Mario, but we've just given it a little twist, which is that you have to jump on their hat. So if you jump on the other person's head, it won't knock, if their hat's not on it won't knock them out. It'll do a little mini stun, but it's the hat. So it's just that like one little bump of additional information that you have to learn, and then everyone picks it up quick.
Just while we're on the subject, Mo, and if you allow me just this slight little diversion here, it recently got announced in the gaming press that Mario is now officially no longer a plumber. How do you guys feel about Mario no longer being a plumber, or did it never really matter to you? Was he just like some fat Italian guy jumped on mushrooms?
Yeah, what is he now? What does he do for a living?
Well, apparently he was a carpenter to begin with, because in Japan he was known as Jump Man. And obviously with the Donkey Kong setting, he was on a construction site. But the idea with obviously using warp zones, and it was all underground, that a plumber seemed to make more sense. But now, apparently it's now been completely phased out. He's just some fat Italian guy who runs around Mushroom Kingdom.
This would be my question, okay? Because if he's no longer a plumber, it would be weird if he keeps going down into the sewers.
Yeah, that's
it would be very weird. And the other question that I have is, if he keeps going down into the sewers, why is Peach still into him? Because he probably stinks.
Why is he still bothering to rescue Peach after all this time? Why is he just like, you know what, rescue yourself for once?
Well,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you can become a lawyer now. I mean,
you can become a lawyer and sue Bowser.
Maybe that's what Super Mario Odyssey is about, you know? Open world, Mario no longer a plumber, interacting with regular humans, can be anything he wants to be.
Back to school.
Well, that's exactly how it started. Is the description for the Super Mario Odyssey updated, and it was saying that Mario is, as it says all around sporty, whether it's tennis or baseball, soccer or car racing. He does everything cool. As a matter of fact, he also seems to have worked as a plumber a long time ago.
Wow. So now he's the everything man that can't get the princess.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
I'm not sure what's worse then, if you put it that way.
Well, we're still begrudging the fact we now have to buy a Nintendo Switch because of Mario XCOM we saw at E3. Or Mario plus Rabbids, Mushroom Kingdom, or...
That looked ridiculous.
But, I mean, obviously, talking of changing concept, I mean, would you say the game has changed from its original concept? I mean, you were saying already before that it was like a case of, it started off as you were jumping on everyone's hats because it was limited oxygen and stuff. I mean, would you say the game's sort of vastly changed from like those initial sort of concept, or do you think that it's had this sort of like always had this initial idea and it's just sort of like had minor tweaks along the way?
I'd say that it's stuck with the original idea, but we've discovered a lot more depth to the gameplay since then. So we've discovered things like what the effect of throwing your hat and being able to catch it right away in midair. We call that the dragon throw, and that just like opens up a whole new set of possibilities to what we knew was, allowed. We've added in second throws. We've changed size of the hats while they're being thrown. So I think really we've learned a lot more about what's possible in the space over time, and so that's changed a bit, but it's still the same essence.
Well, we have gone through like, I would say 5 or 6 different incarnations of the game.
Yeah.
Where there was like the first one where nobody had a hat, the second one where people just had hats that didn't do anything other than like be hitboxes that you can jump on. There was a third one where the hat could fall off if you ran too fast.
That one sucked.
That one was really bad. And there was a fourth one where you could just throw the hat, but it didn't do anything. And then the fifth one, which was the one where if you threw your hat at somebody, it knocked their hat off. And then there was the sixth one, which is the one we're on now, which is it's that same kind of thing, but every character has different abilities and different numbers of jumps and different speeds and all these different things, so that allows them to have their own kind of unique play styles.
So I'm going to change away from this development thing, and I'm going to say, because you guys were probably one of the last projects that were greenlit on Steam. Yeah. So how do you feel about how do you feel like the closing of Steam Greenlight has affected the indie game scene?
It's a little early to say because we're still on that transition mark from Greenlight to Steam Direct. What is interesting about the indie game scene right now is there are just a ton of indie games. There are so many indie games, and I don't think Greenlight versus Steam Direct will change the amount of games being made. And hopefully, what will happen is, Valve will implement systems that allow indie game developers to find their audience faster and also to really shine on their platform.
We've also recently seen a revived interest in the couch co-op. Now, was it always there when you were developing the game, and was it always the intention of making sort of like this a couch co-op, or was it just one of the aspects that you wanted to do like an instant multiplayer as well as the couch co-op? Because it seems that more recently we've seen more importance put on the couch co-op than we have seen in recent years.
Well, what I think the couch co-op offers in terms of from the development side is that it removes a lot of difficulties, I would say. So, for example, if you were making a couch co-op game, it's like you don't need to make AI that people could play against because they have friends. So that automatically creates a larger amount of depth and playtime because people have to get good at the game. And then also playing against people who are better than them allows them to get better. and kind of keeps them at the same level. Whereas, let's say something like a first-person game where you have to go through an adventure world or whatever, that requires the developers to build levels and then make sure all the levels work properly in succession. Also needs to be long enough that the person feels like they got their money's worth. Whereas, let's say in a couch co-op game, you just need to build a relatively deep, 2 or 3 player, 4 player experience. And as long as that experience can be repeated like X amount of times, then you can kind of leave it at that.
And I think also in our last semester at school, I remember we were prototyping, or second to last semester, we were prototyping some games, and our teacher came up to us and he said, "You know what? You guys make really good party games." So we were like, huh, okay. And then we thought about that a bit, and we realized that we actually all of our favorite games are really like against another player, something that can be competitive or just fun that we can get together and laugh at and try to be better than each other and stuff like that. So I think it just sort of naturally, it's been the natural progression so far that we've discovered that I think party games might be our niche. We're not really sure yet, but I think a lot of the games we're thinking about now are party games and competitive games.
And one last thing, just to build on what Chris said, because I think it's really interesting. He said there's like a natural inclination to party games. I think that has something to do with the fact that all of us grew up on a lot of party games. Like we played arcades, we had consoles that had like 1 to 4 controllers. So there's just this kind of awareness of what it is to have fun with other people playing a video game in the same room. Whereas mobile games, like just to give a counterexample, are something that I don't feel like I have this fundamental awareness of, because I didn't grow up with mobile games. Mobile games kind of came to be, so I imagine the young game designer, or the young game designer to be, is going to understand mobile games far better than I ever will, because it's quite something to grow up, engaging and consuming a medium. I really do believe it creates this kind of awareness of the genre as a whole.
Okay, so with the game, I mean, do you have a set date you're aiming for your release for at the moment?
Yeah, so basically right now we have a demo available on our Discord, and it's going to be available throughout the Kickstarter, which is going live on September 8th, and it's going to be ending on November 8th. And so basically that demo is going to be available for that entire window, and then once that window is over, we're going to be doing early access for the game, so on November 8th.
Okay. So also, what platforms are you planning to have this on? Just Steam or other platforms?
For now, just Steam, just for the early access part. And then once we have the game developed to a point where we're very satisfied with it, then we're going to be starting to release the consoles and have our final Steam release. So I mean, we have our eyes on Xbox, PlayStation, and we're fingers crossed for the Switch. That would be absolutely amazing.
It does sound like a perfect match for Switch, especially with their list of indies that they just talked about. So they're really supportive of the indie games going in.
Yeah.
So finally, plug away all your stuff, where we can find you, where we can find the game, game info, anything else.
All right, so yeah, we're facebook.com/kingofthehat or kingofthehat.com, twitter.com/Hyroglyphik, that's JEUXHYROGLYPHIK. We're also on Steam. You can look up King of the Hat. We've got a page. And we're on Discord, King of the Hat on Discord, and that link can be found on our website or on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get it all?
I think so.
Kickstarter going live September 8th, ending November 8th.
Kickstarter going live September 8th, ending November 8th. We're quite excited. The crunch is quite real at the moment, and things are about to get crazy.
Woohoo! Yeah, we'll be excited to see how this game will transform and upon release, of course. And as usual, you'll find all their contact information in the description below. So thanks so much, you guys, for joining us today for this interview and talking about your new game.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
best of luck on the Kickstarter, of course.
Thank you.
And so thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read our game reviews, to get gaming news and info on releases every single day. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast. You can also see all our gaming obsessions on our Instagram at Game Warp Podcast. And also hang out with us over at Twitch, twitch.tv/Game Warp Podcast to watch our streams. Till next time, bye!